cold out, man.
What's up, dude?
What's up?
How you doing?
So good.
What are we doing today?
I need to stretch. So let's do a little stretching routine. And I was figuring maybe let's talk about some stretching mistakes that I've made in the past that I think everybody's making.
Cool.
Let's do it.
So what do you think is the biggest stretching mistake that people make when they start?
I don't know about biggest, but first thing that comes to mind is like, I think most people when it comes to like, they're like, I want to get a little bit more flexible. They don't realize that you need a plan. You need like a routine, right? Like most people understand in their strength training, yeah, if I want to get stronger, then I got to do 3 sets of 10 of this exercise, and then I up the weight eventually, and then get into different rep schemes and stuff like that. But it's the same exact thing for stretching. You have to be consistently doing the same stretches, and then you also have to be tracking that to see, okay, I did this stretch for 30 seconds last week, maybe this week I'm gonna do it for 40 seconds. You know, I did 5, like something like I'm doing right here, I did 5 reps of this last week, let's do 8 reps this week. That's the way that your body makes gains, makes progress, is by doing a bit more work or being more comfortable at the same amount of work. But yeah, I see a lot of people just, you know, you do your gym stuff and then you're like, okay, I gotta spend 10 minutes stretching, and you just kind of flop around on the ground. There's no plan there. You should have a plan, just like in the gym.
Yeah, I think a lot of people with stretching don't treat it like something that you're training.
Exactly.
And I think that that's where most of the gains come from with stretching, is when you treat it like training and you try to add more, you try to do more reps, or just track it and do the same stuff.
That's right.
Weekly.
Yeah, a lot of people think of it as like, this is just my supplementation thing that I have to do. But if you've identified as flexibility as a weakness for you and you want to improve on it, prioritize it. Treat it just like you would your strength work. Boom. So another one that comes to mind, another mistake when it comes to flexibility, I think, is not understanding what flexibility really is. And it's range of motion, essentially, right? And you want to be strong through your ranges of motion. That's what you really want. You think you want to be more flexible, but really you just want to be able to control a joint and like the motion of a joint more, you know what I mean? Flexibility doesn't only just happen in those, you know, the 30 minutes that you spend doing your stretching exercises. It can also happen in your strength exercises, doing deep squats. That's an awesome form of using a full range of motion, right? But even more than that, it's what are you doing throughout your day? Maybe you have your 3 dedicated stretching sessions a week, but daily, you want to hit on a lot of the range of motion that your body has. Maybe you do an activity that forces you to use those ranges of motion, right? Things like martial arts, or, you know, certain sports that just require you to get low to the ground, open up, all these things that really, over time, have a huge effect on how you're able to use your body, right? The openness that your body kind of rests in, right? And yes, you should be stretching, you should be doing some dedicated mobility, but you gotta think that that's only, you know, a small portion of your total week.
You know, the reason we do this is to feel confident in our bodies.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's to feel like we can do a lot of things. And so if you start treating it like that, then it's gonna start to give you a lot. And you're gonna start to see it in a different way.
Yeah.
Start to see it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Another mistake that goes along with it is just, you do want to spend some time like understanding what range of motion, what flexibility is, what mobility actually is. Most people just have a idea in our mind of flexibility just being kind of like these passive stretches that we learned in gym class or warm-ups for soccer practice or something like that. But we can learn a lot from practices like gymnastics or martial arts, where people are using a lot of strength through range of motion. And this is huge when you're an adult, right? When you're a kid, flexibility is just gonna come like it's dripping out of you, basically. When you're an adult, you gotta really, really work for it.
You gotta fight for it.
Exactly, yeah. And that was like huge for me when I realized, oh, I'm not gonna get more flexible by just kind of sitting into these stretches here and just hopefully like my body's changing. I have to actually like demand my body to change almost, you know? And it's an art. It's an art because if you push too hard, your nervous system's gonna tighten up. You're not gonna make any progress. But if you don't push hard enough, then the same thing's gonna happen. Like you're not giving your body enough stimulus to actually change. So there's a sweet spot there, right? Yeah. And I think that's why some people really get into flexibility and really get kind of obsessed with training mobility and get into higher advanced stuff like splits and whatnot, because there's such an art to it. And just like training to get stronger, it's essentially what you're still doing with flexibility. You're training to get stronger, but in a range of motion that your body's not super comfortable with, right?
Yeah, it is such an art, and I think that's like, there's not really a one size fits all. It's like you have to find that for yourself. Everybody has to find those lines and how they're gonna work with their body.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right, yeah. And a lot of that comes down to identifying what your goals are for your flexibility, right? So some people, they're like, you know what, like I think it would be so cool to do a split, so I want to set out on that goal of doing the splits. Other people, well, I just don't want to feel stiff and tight when I'm playing my sport, you know? I want better performance, and I know that if I have a bit more range of motion, I'm probably going to be able to perform better. Other people just want to get out of chronic pain or, you know, stiffness and all that. So really identifying what is this stretching for? What do we want? For me, it's always about just kind of feeling good, right? I don't really care too much about the advanced splits and stuff. Some of that's kind of fun to go after, but I want to be able to access all these positions in my body to go play and mess around and feel comfortable and not feel like I'm being held back from stiffness, which it just creeps in so much as we get older. We're sitting so much. You're an adult. You're adulting. You're in the office. You're coming home. You're with your kids, and you're sitting watching TV a bunch, and it's just so easy just to let it all go and just to tighten up. So I think that it actually doesn't take that much. You don't have to go on this journey of training your flexibility 6 days a week. You can make so much progress in like 2 to 3 days a week. It just has to stay in your routine. You just can't like go off and mess around and not touch your body's ranges of motion for a long time. You know what I mean? So all these mistakes that we're talking about, I've made them. And another huge one that I made, that I think this is just a general fitness mistake that everybody makes, is like you want to get too advanced too early, right?
Yeah.
It's like you should just be putting in some reps with the basics, but instead we start thinking, well, I want to do that pancake stretch, right? And like I remember just trying to get to the pancake so early where I just needed to spend like a lot more time doing basic hamstring stretching and strengthening them to eventually prepare me to then do that pancake maybe after a year's time or even 2 years' time, right? But it's so easy to just be like, oh, what looks cool on the internet? I want to do that. I want to hop in and do the splits, basically, right? That was another one. I started training the front splits really early on. I was actually kind of pretty much able to attain it, get the front splits, but I really just needed to spend more time like stretching my hip extension, opening up my quads and my hip flexors. The basics are gonna like build so much. Like, and the same thing goes for, say, if you're training calisthenics, like if you don't have super strong base and push-ups and pull-ups and you like skip straight to, you know, things like front levers and planches, like you don't have the base to get there and to actually get the juice from that training. The same thing goes for flexibility. It's like, just put in work with the basic stretches, the ones that we know work. And if you're not sure what those ones are, we have a great video, I'll link on the screen right now, the 5 stretches, the only 5 stretches you need to do. You could literally just take those 5 stretches, do those in a routine 2 or 3 times a week, and you could be making so many gains for a long time.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of gains that you can make just with the basics. It's also like learning how to stretch at first too. Like, I think sometimes you want to skip ahead into these like poses, but there's a lot to be gained just in like becoming acquainted with the feelings and what you're searching for and what those lead to, you know?
Such a good point. Such a good point. Like if you don't know how to relax your nervous system, how to use your breath to down-regulate in an uncomfortable position, like you're gonna just struggle when your body gets into one of these bigger positions. But if you know, okay, I've been here before, I know how to use long exhales, I know how to like send you send information into your muscle, and you're able to just kind of like release some tension there. All these things, you have to be doing that at a more ground level. Yeah. You can't throw yourself to the wolves and expect to figure it out.
Yeah, it's a skill. It
is.
Some of the stretches I've been doing them for 5 years.
Yep.
But they feel different for many reasons, but one of those reasons is because I've learned how to better do that stretch.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And it keeps on, it's a process that keeps unfolding more and more.
Yeah.
New layer. Yeah. I think like we touched on this one earlier, but one of the ones that's helped me so much is using the range of motion, not just stretching it. This is not something that like you have to do. It's not completely mandatory, but you can spend a long time stretching your inner thigh muscles, you know, trying to break through some stiffness here. But if we just actually like use this range of motion to do something with, whether that's just, boom, I'm doing Cossack squats to open this up. So my body is like, okay, I mean, he's using strength here. He needs this range of motion. We're gonna release more and more into that. We can even take it a step further, and we're actually doing some type of movement that uses this capability that we're trying to gain access to in our body, right? I think like this concept is really undervalued. Maybe just, you know, it's not talked about so much, but if you put more time into like finding certain fun ways to actually use these ranges, your body's just gonna love it. It's gonna feel good, and you're gonna attain it much better. Yeah.
You said it, man. That's it. Anything else in this realm of mistakes that people might make?
No, I think that's like, you know, number one, just set yourself a plan, stick to it, and learn from it. Just keep learning from it. We have all this great content on strength side. Like I said, the 5 stretches video, those are ones that we think are pretty like essential for just generally opening up the body. Use those and have fun with it, right? Stretching doesn't have to suck as most of us kind of view it to. It's actually a quite nice experience. You can feel kind of open and loose in your body and feel good. So that's it. Like the video, subscribe to Strength Side. See you in the next one.